Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the No Doubt About It podcast with Mark and Christy Ronchetti. Thanks so much for joining us here midweek. Lots to talk about today, Mark.
Yeah.
But before you give us a little tease, I think we should ask our friendly viewers out there their opinion on when it's appropriate for Mark to be more willing to meet guys who are interested in dating his daughter. Because right now, Mark, what time is good for you to meet with a fella that potentially wants to date your daughter?
I mean, just checking, like specifically.
Yeah.
The day after, never. I'm not interested in meeting these cats at this point. I don't understand this. Like, you end up in these conversations with the girls.
Yes.
Talking about, here's what Jimmy and Johnny and all these other people say.
Yeah, Jimmy and Johnny.
I want to meet them. And I'm like, I'm not interested in meeting these kids. I don't want you dating my daughter. I'm not going to act like I'm your friend. I'm not your friend. I have friends. They're not you. You're 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
We're not going to be friends.
Oh, wow.
It's not my job to be your friend.
Okay.
Okay?
So what if these guys are just trying to do the right thing and be like a strong Christian guy, and they want to make sure you approve of who they are a little bit before they spend some time with your daughter?
They're never going to gain my approval by trying to do things that way.
Oh.
Go to school.
Yeah.
Go make something of yourself.
Oh, okay.
Be goal-oriented.
Oh.
And then come talk to me once you've made something of yourself.
Oh, so these boys are not allowed to court your daughter until they have a job? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know what you're all about, guy. I was 18 before. Okay, I've been there. I know exactly what we're dealing with.
See, people, do you see what I'm dealing with? I'm trying to go to bat for the girls. There's a couple of fellas that just want a couple of minutes of Mark's time. And he is telling me, I have this much time on my calendar. I have a big fat zero.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Calendar.
I'll let you know. It's like, it's absolute zero.
Did you not
so
have
for those
to go
of you who are familiar with meteorology, the amount of time I have for them is absolute zero. Freezing. Zero. Nothing. No molecular movement
Pray for
whatsoever.
Ava and Ella, ladies and gentlemen out there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you never have to meet a parent, Mark?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did.
And what if they didn't give you the time of day?
No, actually, they're very nice to me.
See, okay.
Because I was a good kid. That's how it worked. All right, so enough of this. People don't need to hear this discussion from us, but it is...
Well, it's a conversation we were having as we're going into today's show, which is talking about all kinds of different things that have nothing to do with the dating lives of our daughters. It talks a little bit. We have a poll we're going to talk about.
Yeah. We got the leaked poll now.
Poll.
This is the one we're going to debut on Sunday, but so much other stuff happened with what happened with the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The Journal poll came out. We have got a poll that I think is actually far more interesting than anything I anticipated, quite frankly. It's more interesting than the Journal poll simply because the Journal poll told us the horse race and the governor's race. And we have that too, by the way, in this poll. We have that information as well. And we're going to give you that. But there's a deeper dive. This poll that was given to us is a poll of Democratic voters, but it dives into some issues that I think you're going to find very, very interesting. And I think it's fascinating. So we're going to lead off the show with that. And then we're going to get into an El Niño discussion. El Niño is coming. It's coming quickly to New Mexico, and it's going to have a very significant impact. And we're watching that happen right now. We're going to have some other polling information. And then at the end of the show, it's going to be a bit faith-based at the end of the show, talking about some of where we are with faith in this country, and then some things that may lead you to believe, are we in trouble with faith? Meaning, are we walking away from faith, or are we walking to faith? There's some information on both sides.
Okay.
And then we're going to end with a beautiful and sad and heart-wrenching soundbite from Ben Sasse, who's a former senator from Nebraska, who I've always been a big fan of because he's a deep thinker. I really think he's a really smart guy. And he is dying of cancer. And Scott Pelley, who I'm not always a huge fan of, asked him a great question. And I want to play that for you at the end. And so please stick with us for that. It is, if you have kids, it is heart-wrenching. And it's something I think you'd ask yourself if you knew you only had a few more months to live with cancer.
Wow.
But I think it's very worth it, and it's inspiring, honestly. It really is. All right. Should we get to this?
Well, let's do it. I mean, we've been teasing this poll.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was coming down the pike. I had some information.
You did. You got some intel. So go ahead. Let's talk a little bit. Let's start with Deb Haaland's favorability rating. Shall we?
Yeah. So let's do that. So this is a dive into both Haaland and Bregman's favorability before we get into some of the issues that I think you're going to find really interesting. And this is interesting too. I think this stuff's more interesting than the horse race between the two, to be honest with you. Okay. So Deb Haaland right now with her own voters. Again, this is just Democrats. Okay. She's very favorable with 42%. And again, this goes back. So the people who did this poll did the last poll we shared with you. Okay. So it goes from March 26, 2026 and into April. So these are two different polls, okay? And so it shows that what's happened to her very favorable rating, it's actually gone up. She's up to 44% with her own party versus 42% in March. Somewhat favorable, that's gone up too, okay, by a couple of points. So her total favorability from March to April has gone up 4 points. She's now 69% favorability with her own party. Okay,
that's pretty high.
That's pretty good, right? Okay. That's pretty good. It's what you would expect. It's not unbelievably high, but it's pretty good. All right, so her unfaves though have gone up. Her unfaves have definitely gone up. Remember, Bregman and a PAC associated with him, or at least a PAC that's supporting him, has been burying her on the Epstein stuff. Right. Okay, so it raised her unfavorables. Her unfavorables back in March were 9%. Now they're 22%. So her unfavorables have definitely gone up by about 11 or so, 12 or so points, maybe 13 points total, okay?
Okay.
And so then her unfavorability there, you can see there. So, all right, so interesting. Her unfaves are up a little bit. So then we go over to Bregman, okay? Well, this is interesting, okay? His very favorable is exactly the same. His core support has not changed, 16%, okay? In both March and April. Somewhat favorables have gone up. Okay, so that's good for Bregman. He went 21% in March, 29% in April. Total favorables for him have gone up to 45%. Okay, I think people get to know him a little bit more, and as the race goes along, he realizes with some of his own voters he's in good shape. Total unfaves, though, have doubled. Okay, so he was at 16% in
a
March.
Month. That's rough.
In a month, that's rough.
What happened?
I think what's happened to him is, we've talked about this, the electorate is hers, right? They're liberal. They're very liberal. He's trying to run as the moderate, a brilliant approach from, Showboat, right? Decides I'm going to run as the moderate when there are no moderates in the party voting in this particular primary, right? So what happens is he attacks her. And when you attack someone, it's a double-edged sword, okay? If you go after them and the attack is really, really good, what you'll do is you'll sink them. You'll destroy them. Okay, their favorabilities will crash. You'll zap them. They'll be done. Your unfaves will go up. Right? Yeah. Your unfaves go up because you're attacking somebody.
Right.
People don't like that. However, negative ads work. Okay,
I know.
They work for a reason.
People are always like, "Oh, we should just stay positive. Everybody's got to stay positive all the time." I fully support that. I just know that just strategically speaking, it doesn't work. Like you make the biggest ding when you point out the differences between you and a fellow candidate, and you need to point out like what could be potentially something that would be brought out by the other side. I mean, that is kind of what ends up happening in these races when you watch them. So interesting.
And when we talked about from the very beginning that it looked like the Epstein hit was about a 10-point shot, to Haaland's bottom line, but it's also a 16-point hit to the negative for Bregman. So his negatives go up 16 points. So the reality is, again, as we said from the beginning, these numbers start to show us he has nowhere to go. Like he just has nowhere to go. He doesn't have enough ammunition to do enough damage to her to create a tight race.
Okay, but let me just throw this out to you then. Yeah. I'm just going to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Go for it.
27% say they still, of his party, say they've still never heard of him.
Right.
Do you not think that there's any room there for him to get to know more people in his party?
Sure, but he's not going to get 27% of them. He's not going to get all of them, right?
Right.
He's not going to get them all.
Okay.
So he still has 27% that have never heard of him. That number's coming down consistently because he's advertising, she's advertising.
Right.
She's hitting him, he's hitting her, right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, people actually have heard of him more now that I really look at that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now they've gone, remember, if you look, 27% hadn't heard of him. That was in March.
Right.
Now it's 9%.
Right.
They know who he is.
Yeah.
So it's just, he's not going anywhere.
Okay.
So that's what it says. All right. So then we go looking ahead. if you're going to, what's going to happen with the horse race between these two, okay? This is the thing that a lot of people care about. Deb Haaland was looking at 55% of the vote in March. She's now still looking at 53. That's remarkably stable, okay? And by the way, the Journal's numbers were pretty similar. She's right around 52, 53%, okay? Bregman was at 21%, and now he's at 23. It's tightened slightly, not enough to be close. So this is a 30-point race.
Wow.
Okay. So that is, I'm just telling you, this thing isn't going anywhere. It just
and
is
we are
not
looking
going
at
anywhere.
less than 2 weeks till early voting starts.
Right.
So that's pretty significant as
Correct.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. No question. And you're right. And so overall, his best shot at her, as we predicted before, would not be enough to tank her. And in fact, it pulls him down a little bit. It pulls her down a little bit. And eventually the result is still about a 30-point race. I think this feels to me like a 30-point race when it finishes, to be honest with you.
Things really have not changed so much since we first started talking about this a year ago. It's kind of crazy. I mean, realistically, like, this is kind of what we said, I feel like, a year ago when they both announced that we were going to obviously keep our eyes on this, but it's really turning out very similarly, at least so far, from what the read is on this campaign of what actually is probably going to transpire. I think, Sam's out there hoping for those independent votes, Mark, and you've said pretty clearly you might get some, but not enough to make up ground. You still stand by that?
Yeah, and so when this poll here is a 10% independent is included in this poll. 10%
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 10% of independents are included in this particular poll. The Journal poll, 12% of independents. I think that's too high. I don't think you're going to see 12% independents voting in the Democratic primary. I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. But even if it does, it doesn't matter. It won't matter.
Okay, let's move on to this. Yeah. Land commissioner, Mark, when you brought this up to me a couple of years ago, land commissioner, I was like, I don't really know what they do. I don't know how important it is. I admit, I just didn't know a whole lot about land commissioner. I didn't realize in a lot of ways, they're the second most powerful position in the state as far as calling the shots. Is that pretty fair to say?
Yeah, with access to public lands and the influence over oil and gas, ranching, water rights, all different sorts of things. The state land commissioner is a very important race, okay? And I think it's hard to tell exactly where they were going with this poll, the way they were asking things. Okay, but I think this is one of the races they really wanted to know about. Yeah. So this is the Democratic race. This is not the Republican race. The Republicans already have a nominee, Michael Perry, who's going to run against whoever wins this.
Got it.
But just this gives you a great idea of people running in a race with no one knows who they are. I mean, if you
I'll tell you, I know who Matthew McQueen is because that guy and I went, round for round on Twitter during the governor's race with you. I'm not a fan of Matthew McQueen.
Oh, Matthew McQueen is a special kind of individual. Let's just say that. I would say this. I would say this.
Mean person.
It would be catastrophic if he was the land commissioner, the state land commissioner. Yeah. It would be catastrophic, and I'll explain why in subsequent questions here in this poll.
Okay, so 14% are going for Juan de
Jesus Sanchez. So he is supported by he's a Heinrich guy. Okay. But there are a lot of people who think he'll be more reasonable than McQueen, and then Perry obviously would be more reasonable still, no question, as a Republican here. So we'll see if Michael Perry can clip them. Anyway, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Nobody knows these guys.
Yeah, let's move on a little bit.
But this does show you one quick thing.
Yeah.
If you dump a bunch of money into this race, if let's say Sanchez gets a bunch of money from somebody, like say Heinrich helps hook him up with a PAC that dumps $500,000 into the race, you could just take off with this thing, right? Or God forbid McQueen managed to reach under a mattress somewhere and find some money. Let's hope
talk
it doesn't
about how
happen.
mean he is.
Yeah. Talk about what just a royal jerk the guy is.
Jerk he is.
He really is. But so if he got a hold of some money or whatever, he could try to get it headed in his direction, or even Jonas Moya. So anyway, nobody knows these guys. We'll see what happens. They're the prohibitive favorites, though, going into the general. There's no question because of the environment out there, but we'll see.
Okay, so here's a question I thought was pretty interesting because it has to do with oil and gas. And I've said over and over and over, doesn't the Democratic Party, aren't they aware of how important oil and gas is to the state? And I've asked different strategic people that work in races, people that understand the campaign. Often the argument that they say is if they know, they don't care, or they don't actually know or pay attention. This actually is showing us a lot of Democrats are very aware that our state budget is largely funded by oil and gas.
That's why I think this whole poll's fascinating, okay? Here's the first piece of information I thought was really interesting here. 86% of Democrats polled know that we get 50% of our revenue from oil and gas. They're aware of it. That's important. That's important because over time, I think in general, the general media has talked about it. Our legislators have talked about it. Republicans have been constantly driving this point home that you can't push this business out of the state of New Mexico or the results will be, no question, catastrophic. The amount of suffering that would happen in the state of New Mexico if you got rid of oil and gas is beyond measure. There's no way to calculate it. And so as you look at this and you see that 86% of Democrats do realize, hey, that's 50% of our budget, that's a positive, actually. You want them to realize that. And I think this sets up a point I want to make very clear before we get to these other questions. Because the rest of these questions were surrounding oil and gas. Okay. And let me just tell you, I think what these questions start to show us is there's a performative aspect of what a lot of Democrats say. I'm for climate change. Oh, we got to do something. We've got to get rid of carbon. And then there's the reality. And I think what we're seeing is the performative routine of climate change is going to truly be exposed for what it is. You can't do it. You can't decarbonize. It's stupid. And the reason I say it's stupid is because you just absolutely can't do it. With the advent of AI and how important energy is to the state of New Mexico for your basic services and benefits and healthcare, everything across the board, education, you cannot afford to get rid of oil and gas. And I think you start to see something interesting develop here.
What I also found pretty interesting, Mark, is not only they are aware of oil and gas needing to fund our budget in the state, they also largely approve of it, which goes against everything that they've been saying. So this question was thinking about your views towards oil and natural gas production. Do you approve or disapprove of the drilling and production of oil and natural gas in New Mexico?
I agree. I was shocked when they sent this number.
58% of Democrats say they approve of the oil, the drilling and the production of oil. I mean, you would not know that by the clown shows you have up in the state legislature.
That's right. That's what's so interesting.
It's unbelievable.
We were watching the state legislature and what happened with Mimi Stewart, where she puts this bill up in front of the state legislature, which would have been devastating to oil and gas, acting as if she's the vanguard of the Democratic Party and what the people care about. And then when you actually put to the people and say, do you approve of the fact that oil and gas is produced in the state of New Mexico and it creates a massive amount of revenue that helps the state budget grow 10% a year, by the way? Michelle Lujan Grisham, again, as we've said, should thank God for oil and gas every day of her life because it's allowed her to basically double the state budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, right? It's amazing what we've seen in this state with oil and gas. And then you go and look at these numbers and you say, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? I was shocked when I saw this number. There's no doubt.
Okay, so let's go on. Based on what you know today, would you support or oppose a potential ballot measure to ban fracking in the development and production of oil and gas in New Mexico?
Okay,
this is weird because it looks like am I reading this right?
No, you're reading it right.
55% say they would actually vote in favor of banning fracking.
Okay, correct.
So that's weird.
Okay, so this is what happens. This is what you call informing the ballot. In other words, you start telling people, okay, just tell me what you think about this. Do you approve of the fact that we produce oil and gas? Well, yeah. And then you say, well, okay, would you want to ban fracking? And they're like, well, yeah. So this is what I mean by this all being performative, okay? So you see that number, that 55%, like, hey, let's ban fracking, which would end oil and gas production in the state of New Mexico.
And that's what I'm wondering, like, do they connect the dots there?
Okay, they start to, the more questions they ask. So now, here's the next question that comes through.
And how concerned would you be about the impact on public service like education, roads, and healthcare if the oil and gas industry were significantly reduced or removed from the state? Now,
that question is, that starts to put real life reality to this. So, okay, if we start to remove oil and gas, how concerned would you be that your benefits like healthcare or education or roads would be adversely affected? And people go, oh, well, yeah, I would be concerned because 86% know half the budget comes from there.
Yeah.
And then they look at the number and they go, oh, yeah, you're right. So 44% say they're very concerned. 34% say they're fairly concerned. And then the people that say they're not concerned at all are just living in dreamland, right? Okay, so that starts to tell you the whole thing starts to fall apart. The whole number of, let's ban fracking, the 55% that want to ban fracking. And by the way, that's half the Democratic Party at best. But once you start to inform them, this all starts to fall apart.
Okay, so they follow up with this question, I guess. Yeah. Okay, thinking more about the financial impact on public services, would you support or oppose policies that could reduce or eliminate oil and natural gas production in the state, even if it meant significant cuts to state-funded services? Now you have a much smaller amount of people.
37% of Democrats
that are in favor of cutting oil and gas production in the state.
So this shows you what a paper tiger this is. This shows you that there is no real support to do this. When you actually put reality to this, the whole climate change, I'm for decarbonizing, and then you say to them, okay, well, guess what? Here's what happens when you do. Here's what happens when the real world slaps you in the face. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, you have a third of Democrats who are like, okay, let's keep doing it. Let's keep driving this bus over the cliff. And the rest of the Democrats are like, and remember, all of Republicans would tell you to pound sand, and about 80% of independents would tell you, no way we're doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why this whole climate change, let's go and do this net zero, which they tried to do in the last legislative session, is so ridiculous and in fact inappropriate. When you look at legislators who go and try to do this sort of thing, they are absolutely acting against the will of the people. They are trying to increase suffering, whether they realize it or not. That's what they're doing.
Well, I also think there's just a PR. There's bad PR words, right, in the world of all of this. So you shine this up. You talk about fracking. Well, fracking is like, oh gosh, I heard somewhere that's bad, right? Like it's just got this stigma to it in the Democratic Party of fracking's bad. I'm going to say no, that we definitely don't want fracking. Oh, well, if we don't frack, then we can't do oil and gas production, which will impact your health services and your child's education. How do you feel about it now? Oh, no, then keep it in.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to like basic voter education, like making sure people know more. That's the whole reason we started this show 3 years ago, was because I felt really frustrated. Scout is equally frustrated. You can hear her right now. That when we were on the campaign trail and when you were running for office, how many questions came where people just did not know about certain things? And even after the fact, after the campaign was over and we lost the governor's race, the amount of people that still just did not know how bills worked, what Mark's power in government would actually have been and not been. And they were like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know he couldn't have changed that. I didn't know, I didn't know. And it's like, this is the whole point, right? Is making voters more informed.
Yeah, and I think the first giveaway that this was going to be super interesting was that 86% realized that it's half the state budget.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, that education has occurred, at least to some degree.
So then what are you saying then about Deb Haaland, who is very big on ending oil and gas? Is she legit about that?
Well, no. So that's what's going to be super interesting, right? So let's do this one last thing, and then we'll talk about the impact on the race.
Sorry. All right. So
no, you're good. Go ahead.
Changing the subject, which of the following statements comes closest to your view, even if it's not exactly how you feel? 40% felt like they went along with it's important to take aggressive action on climate change, even if it means reduced state funding for schools, roads, and public services. You got 40% that still land on that. That's still too high of a number in my opinion. But
yeah, agreed. But it's the Democratic Party.
Okay, and then you got 35% that said it's important to fully fund schools, roads, and public services, even if it means slower action on climate change.
Yeah, so basically this is a 50-50 number. Okay, really,
at
the end of the day, right?
Because you got neither don't know. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right? Point. So because you got neither 22, 4 don't know. Okay, so realistically, only half the Democratic Party would even say that they would say put climate change ahead of services, which is nuts. So in other words, you look at the state as a whole, and we're probably a 75-25 state when it comes to, okay, we drill for oil and gas, we get benefits that help people, we don't drill for oil and gas, and we increase suffering. It's a 75-25 number. It's not close. Okay, that's what I'm saying. This whole thing is a house of cards,
right?
And
it's like this old school. It's like it's not even old school. It's like the new book that was written for Democrats to accept, like the last 10 years. I feel like.
Yeah, no, and I think there's a new book now. I think that new book is you can't do this anymore. We're in an AI race with China. You cannot possibly advocate for these things. This is another one of the issues that I think the Democrats are on the 80-20, on the 20 side on. They have to migrate. They have to migrate over to say, okay, we have to produce more energy. It's
so, okay, so what does Deb Haaland do? Because Deb Haaland, in my opinion, or from what I've ever heard, is she is going to end oil and gas industry. She's going to shut it down. She doesn't like it. She wants us to go with, I don't know, solar and wind, and I don't even know. It just
isn't enough.
Right.
Again, if you actually do things like math, like addition and subtraction and multiplication, maybe even a little bit of long division. It can be involved.
Can it be done?
And you start looking at the numbers, and you realize that's just ludicrous. You can't do it with renewables, not even close. So what is she going to do? My guess is she's going to backtrack. She's going to say that we have to produce oil and gas responsibly, but we cannot we cannot ban fracking. She has to say that.
Does she say that before the election or after?
Oh, no. Now she's got. Well, no. I'm sorry. After the primary. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know. She may have said it already. I don't even know. I don't know what she's done. I'm not sure. But
I don't know.
But my point is that if I'm running against Deb Haaland, I go after Deb Haaland. I take the words she's already said in public and replay them.
Yeah.
Which are that she wants to ban fracking. Okay. And then say, okay, if we hold her at her word, she effectively wants to destroy the state of New Mexico. And I would wrap that around her neck.
Yeah.
I think that is by far the best approach to take if you're going to go after her. Now, there's a bunch of other issues you can try to go after her on. And she's going to, not want to address those issues and everything else. But yes, I think if you're a Republican, you're the one who can make that case. Sam Bregman can't make that case.
I know. Sam
right?
can't do it. No.
He can't do it.
Yeah.
But a Republican can.
Well, and they will.
And they will.
I don't doubt at all. Okay, so just let's wrap up this polling part. What are the key takeaways that you think people should walk away with this? This is like a very busy graph.
It is a busy graph.
There's a lot of words on here, fella.
Point number one, 86% of Democrats know how much of our budget comes from oil and gas. That's big. All right. 78% of them are concerned if we cut oil and gas, what it'll mean for benefits. That's a big deal. And for the state budget here. And then most Democrats oppose policies that would eliminate oil and gas production. They really do. And so that's interesting stuff. And they're basically split on the fact of, do you prioritize climate change or oil and gas production, and continuing on the path that the state is on here. So just to me, what this really shows us is this whole climate change thing, it was the last 10 years. It's not the next 10. It's just not.
Interesting.
And so I think now what we should be doing as a state is galvanizing and saying, okay, where are we going to go? We need to continue to produce oil and gas more cleanly and efficiently than any other state in the country, period. Keep doing that. But then we've got to add nuclear in a massive way. Small modular nuclear reactors, fusion, all of this stuff. If you want to talk about something where the left and the right can unite, it should be over fusion. And that should be our moonshot. Our moonshot should be develop fusion in a massive way to take our energy needs and basically meet them across the board. Again, fusion, we got a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. Fission is much more doable. Do small modular nuclear reactors with that, which we're doing in the state of New Mexico, by the way. To some degree, there's some development going on here, but there's got to be a lot more.
I feel like you're campaigning. This is.
Sorry about that.
I remember. No, it's fine. I feel like I could almost give that speech. How much we talked about that on the campaign trail, and for people to actually learn about that a little bit and make us be more of the energy state that New Mexico actually originated, kind of.
Well, we are the energy state.
And so we should be like mentoring that. Okay, let's move on a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the Republicans. This one, I liked this. An article came out on Gregg Hall, and it's a glowing article, actually, and it's reflecting on his tenure as Rio Rancho mayor. And, as somebody who's run a PR company for 25 years, I believe in the power of an article, a positive article. I'd argue, Mark, that it will serve him better, depending on how many people read this, or if he utilizes this to help push his message out more than an advertisement. I think articles, I think real life experience that gets covered in lifestyle article, I just think that has more oomph to it. And I was glad to see this for Gregg.
Right. When you run an ad, people kind of view that ad through the lens of skepticism. Like anytime they see a campaign ad, they know it's a campaign ad, right? And you beat them over the head with it and everything else, and it has its effectiveness. There's no doubt. But one thing what's called earned media. So if you're in politics, this is called earned media. And
if you're in PR, it's called earned media, guy. It's not just really a politics type thing. But I'm just saying, as somebody that has run a company for 25 years doing exactly this for clients. Okay, I'm just saying. But keep going. No. Keep going there. Campaign.
Throwing your resume at
No. I like that it's campaign banter is calling it earned media. Okay, go. Anyway. Back to you.
When you get earned media, that is viewed less skeptically. And you read it and you say, oh my gosh, that's interesting. And so this whole article is based on Gregg Hull's last kind of city council sort of meeting in Rio Rancho. And that's one of the best things Hull can draw on is the fact that Rio Rancho, next to Albuquerque, while Albuquerque, without question, has suffered in the last 10 years and seen a significant decline in the quality of life and seen a significant increase in crime and homelessness and the quality of life taking a dive in Albuquerque. The same thing has not happened in Rio Rancho.
Yeah.
Gregg Hull has overseen a very, very, has done a great job. And so that's sort of what they talked about.
Yeah, I wanted to read some of these remarks because I thought this was great for Gregg Hull. In farewell remarks at the meeting, Hull was gleeful about the city's accomplishments under his watch. Quote, tonight, as I take my seat at this dais for one final time as mayor of Rio Rancho, I do so with a full heart, deep gratitude, and immense pride in what we have accomplished together over the last 12 years. He said he came into office setting out to make Rio Rancho safer, stronger, and more prosperous than before. We didn't just talk about that vision, we delivered on it, Hull said. And I'm like, yes, Hull, nicely done. Now, take this article, Gregg Hull, and promote it, get it out there, make sure that this is your message. I want to see Gregg Hull do well. I like Gregg Hull a lot. I think he's in this race for the right reasons, and I think that he has shown what it takes to be a strong leader. And I really like the guy. I think he's done a good job. So I was really excited to see this article done on him. So and congratulations, by the way, on your tenure as mayor. Yeah, I think it's great.
There's nobody who loves his job more than Gregg Hull. He loved that job. And we'd sit down with him and he would talk about everything from like collecting the trash to tax rates.
Yes.
To where are the fire stations? Like we were talking about all of it.
Oh, he's a true believer of his city. I mean, he really is. He's a guy that gets fired up about the minutia that might bore other people. He finds it like exciting and a good challenge and something that he wanted to work on. So anyway, I think very highly of him. So I was really glad
so the question is, can he raise enough money to get this word out? And one thing I'll say is I think what you're seeing from Doug Turner, what Doug has done a better job of, quite frankly, is raising money right now and getting that word out. Now, I still haven't seen TV ads from these guys. I saw one ad from Turner kind of giving his bio a little bit, and that's going to help getting that word out
he has
to
to
some
get his
degree.
ID out, yeah.
I've seen a lot of billboards from Duke, which billboards, they win elections. So we know that's going to happen. And so, but for the most part here, those three have someone's going to emerge from those three. And I have got on good authority, I got another leaked poll in the pipeline. Okay.
And we're going to talk about Republicans?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know when they're going to do it.
Oh,
okay. So that's the, but I do have guarantees that we will get it.
Okay.
So my guess is if I'm guessing on this, what are we in, late April?
But yeah.
Okay.
Late April.
My guess is it will be late May because nobody knows any of the Republican candidates yet. So you want to wait as long as you can.
Does that not hurt them though? Like they've not knowing the Republican candidates and we've got early voting starting in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's completely up in the air.
It's so crazy to me. I actually got a note the other day, an email into the show saying, hey, Mark, I don't know. This is a legit question. Are you running for governor right now? And I'm like,
gosh.
Oh my gosh. If you were running for, I wrote back and I was like, thank you for the kind question. But if Mark was running for governor, you would have known about it a year ago. Like you got to be loud and you got to be all over the place. But this for a long time.
This is why the whole Duke thing is interesting because as much as we've given Duke the business, right? Duke, if he really wanted to put $1 million in, if he wanted to put his money where his mouth is, he may be able to steal this thing. If he put $1 million in, not with billboards, he would actually have to do things like not with the paper and not with billboards. You got to go on TV and go on digital. Like that's how you're going to win.
And then Hull better step up to the plate and talk about his donor, who he's donated all his money to, because he's not.
But you don't have the money. They don't have the money. So, but Duke could theoretically pivot.
I'll say it for you there, Greg. I'll say it.
Can I finish here for a second? Goodness gracious. So I'm just saying that there's an opening there still for him, but I think what's happened to him is he's gone into enough rooms and gotten enough pushback that I think he's starting to realize I'm not going to go throw good money after bad. And so I don't think he's going to put a ton of money back into it. But if he did, because I'm sure he has the money to do it, and he's done well, I bet if he put $1 million in this race down the stretch, he'd be formidable if he decided to do it. I just don't think he's going to. Yeah. And I think going and watching a bunch of, you go and spend all this money on billboards and in the paper. You just need real people giving you smart advice on where to actually move voters.
I disagree, Mark. I think that you can get the message out about Duke's voter or donations and the fact that he's donated largely to Democrats. You can get that message out digitally. You can get that out socially. You can do that without spending a ton of money. I'm not saying you have to put that on television.
No, you don't.
I think you can reach people in different avenues, and I'm talking about it right now because I know about it.
Although you're right.
I'm just saying I think Gregg and Doug Turner can absolutely get that information out.
I agree with you, and I think the way they should get it out, and I don't know if they will, but I would not be surprised is through the mail. Don't be surprised if you start seeing mailers that tell you exactly what's going on. But they may not. They may pull that back too. If he doesn't start spending money, there's no reason to kill him because there's no reason to. Because he has, if you look at every number that's come out to this point, his support's in the single digits. Now, if he starts spending money, then you zap him, and then it's done.
All right, let's talk El Niño. Let's move on to weather. El Niño, it's coming. Right? This is what you keep talking about.
This is going to be big.
Now, just put your weather hat on. Everybody that likes to hear Mark talk about weather, well, here you go. Here's a little special treat for you.
All right.
Take us away.
We'll make this quick because we've already gone over. El Niño is developing rather quickly. I mean, we were in a La Nina, a kind of a back-to-back La Nina, 2 terrible winters in New Mexico. Now, if you remember back to last spring, we got some good storms that kept fire danger down. We are actually looking at a very interesting scenario here. Over the past couple of weeks, models have started to change a little bit. I'm just going to show you something here, and I'll just play this loop a couple of times. But really what I want to show you here is that I'm just going to slide my finger across here just to slowly see storms coming across. So as you look at your screen here, what I'm going to show you is a couple of storms headed in our direction. There's one here, and it's a trough that's over Southern California right now as you're looking at it right here. It's where you see the yellows and reds over the Baja, okay? That storm's coming in late this week, and that's coming right across. That's going to be a good precip maker across the high northern mountains. We're going to get snow. Southern mountains going to pick up some rain. It's going to be a good storm. And then we're likely to see another storm come rolling in here. You can see it coming right in there. It's over California. It's over Nevada. And that's coming in across and being carried by the southern branch of the jet across New Mexico. And that is going to happen into next week. And then there's another storm behind that coming across the state into next week as well. The reason I bring this up is because the southern branch of the jet is starting to get active here. That is sort of a nice little precursor to El Nino. We're not in El Nino yet, but it's happening really, really quickly. And the difference with this El Nino is it is going to be extremely strong, and it's going to last a while. So what I want to show you here's just a graphic from NOAA, which tells us the possibility of getting an El Nino, okay? And you see those months across the bottom, Christy?
Yes.
Okay,
Mark,
see where it says MAM, M-A-M at the bottom there?
Yes.
Okay, that's just March, April, May. Okay, so really you take the middle month. So you say April, we're in neutral conditions now. See the gray bar?
Yep.
Okay, so you go into April, and then you go into May, and you start seeing the possibility of El Nino creep up, right? The red bar. Mm-hmm. And then look what happens in June, July, and August. Look at the probability of El Nino. Look at how much that goes up to 80, 90%. Mm-hmm. And then it continues all the way into the winter. Okay, now it's not just going to be that we're going to have an El Nino. It's going to be how warm the ocean is going to be in the equatorial Pacific, okay? We care about that. And so you see all these squiggly lines. Mm-hmm. Those are all different models, okay? And so the dashed line is sort of the average of the models. So to have an El Nino, you need to be about half a degree above average in your temperature, okay? Do you see where the squiggly line is? You see the dotted line goes up to about 2 degrees above average? Mm-hmm. That's a massive El Nino, okay? So that's the average. If we end up above that average, we could be looking at an El Nino where we're 2.5 degrees above average. Like, that's a super powerful El Nino. So what does it mean? It means that the storm track comes down into the southwest. We get much better snowpack. We will, in some cases, get some warm storms as well. But this is very good for New Mexico, and it's not just good for the winter. It's also good, I think, for the monsoon flow. I think it's going to be pretty robust. I think we're going to be good through the fall and good through the winter. We desperately need this, and we haven't had a really powerful El Nino on this scale in a couple of decades. So this thing is really big. About every 10 years or so, you get what you call a Super El Nino. This one's in that category, and it could be incredible.
Okay, so when do you think you actually know? Like, you can call that it's going to be a Super El Nino. When does that happen? August?
I think right now we can say that I think it's going to be a Super El Nino.
I'm
pretty confident in it right now.
Okay.
And
so then we buy your lift tickets now. Everybody get your season passes.
I think it's going to be an epic ski season.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely look at that. I think we're going to be looking at a ton of snow in the northern mountains, ton of snow in the southern mountains, places like Ruidoso. Cloudcroft can do very well out of this. The Gila can end up with a great snowpack when these sorts of things happen. So occasionally we get some wet systems that come through, and there'll be rain in the mountains, even in the winter. That does happen. But to give you an idea, some of these massive storms that we've seen in years past, that sort of thing is setting up to be a real possibility here. So Be ready.
All right, be ready. Okay, so speaking of being ready, let's talk about one more poll real quick here. Yeah. And this is kind of shocking. Talk us through this a little bit. The GOP is currently tied with Democrats on the generic congressional ballot.
Yeah.
Explain what this means.
This is the question of, hey, in your congressional race, are you going to vote for the Republican or the Democrat? That's the simple question that's asked. Okay, it's just, are you going to vote for the Democrat or the Republican? With a Republican in the White House, you would anticipate Democrats up by 5, 7, 8 points, 10 points, something like that. Latest poll from Harvard comes out. It's dead even at 50-50. Interesting stuff, okay? So we'll see what ends up happening with it. Don't know for sure how much it really means, but it is at least interesting. And then another poll comes out and says, hey, by the way, in 2028, what are we looking at as far as who are the front runners? And you may be surprised. On the Democratic side, front runner right now is guess who? And she's up with a rocket ship number. 50% Kamala Harris, a return to the top of the ticket.
Scout is not, she's not digging that. Can you hear her wooing?
Yes,
she's like, yeah, no.
Definitely.
Really? We're going back with Kamala, huh?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what Kamala,
her too, whatever. Do you really think that that's going to happen? Like, do you think Harris is going to be?
There's a lot that's going to change between now and then, but she's well known, and don't forget, Democrats don't tend to do a lot of freelancing with their nominees. They have a system in place.
I know. I thought it was like Newsom, though. I thought like Newsom.
Well, he's number 2.
Guy.
He's number 2.
So what? He's going to be her VP?
Well, I don't know. Not yet. I mean, Newsom's going to run against her, and do I think he's more formidable than she is? Yes. Yeah. Even despite his horrendous California record, I think he's more of an issue than her. And then you look at J.D. Vance right now, Donald Trump Jr. number 2, or Marco Rubio number 3. So we'll wait and see on some of this stuff. Some of it's just kind of interesting.
Donald Trump Jr. That's not legit, is it?
I would think him running against J.D. Vance would be virtually impossible. They appear to be pretty tightly wound at the hip with each other.
That would be weird. Yeah. I don't think that's not right timing. So let's end this show with, a little twist, and let's talk about something different that we're finding. And we're talking about people's faith and how important is faith now in our country based on prior generations. Are we seeing people dive into their faith more, or are they pulling back from their faith?
So I want to show you a number 2 to start this whole thing off. So there's about 4 graphics we're going to do a deep dive on here. The first one is, how much do you trust people to be able to say people are genuinely good? Or generally good, right? I mean, and it's interesting because the more you go from, say, the silent generation down to Gen Z, you start seeing something very interesting develop, and I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it looks like we're losing trust in people, right? Yeah. So the silent generation said 41% of them said that they thought people could be trusted. Yep. And then you go all the way down to Gen Z, and they're like, oh, no, 13% of you I can trust.
Yeah, so boomers get 29%. Gen X is similar to boomers, and I would think that makes some sense, right? I think Gen X and boomers grew up largely sort of in the same country. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, boomers definitely, depends. Like, the very tippy top of the boomers, they went through World War II, or they were coming out of World War II. Right. So they definitely didn't have the experience of Gen X, which is the 80s. Let's be honest. Like, that is a little bit different.
But the country as a general rule was sort of what it was, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s.
I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
So then you get into millennials and you see that really drop off even more. And then Gen Z, it really drops off. So anytime you have a society where you say, okay, you're losing trust in your fellow man, it's not great, right? It's not great. And so what's interesting is we start, and Jonathan Haidt is somebody we've had come on before and played some sound from him. And he talked about something interesting. He was actually on Comedy Central. And he talked about something interesting in the way kids grow up now and the challenges that they face. And it sort of ties into this graphic on losing faith in your fellow man. So just listen to what he says about this.
And so religious kids are rooted in traditions, faith, rituals, community. They go to church every Sunday. The Jewish kids have Shabbat. They literally can't use electronics for a day. So they were always happier than the secular kids. But what happens after 2012, it's quite remarkable in all the graphs. The religious kids get a little more anxious and depressed. The secular kids get much more anxious and depressed. So what I'm saying is, especially if you're an atheist, you're going to have to work much harder. You're going to have to be much more intentional about rooting your kid in stable social relationships. If you give him an iPad, then he graduates to a phone, and it's all this network, that network, interacting with strangers and weirdos and bots and AIs, that's not a community. That's crazy making.
Okay. So that gets to a point, right? Which is that the more you take faith and sideline it, the more issues you have. Now, Hate's actually an atheist, I believe, which it makes zero sense to me that he's literally talking about just something, a clear societal good that I think God has an impact on, and he doesn't manage to reach that.
No, because like his argument, though, Mark, he's often on as an influencer talking about how damning screen time, phones, all that are on today's youth.
It's
and
true.
so I think he's really kind of that's his big thing is he's talking about electronics and screen time and how they're stripping away the younger generation of being able to have critical thinking and good mental health. That's his push. So I don't know if I've ever heard him talk about his faith, ever. But the fact that he's correlating it to people that have faith are less likely.
Well, it's not his faith. He's just talking about faith.
I know, just people with faith, they're less likely to be, I guess, depressed or influenced in that way. Doesn't mean that there's not depression in faith-filled kids. It just means that it comes at them a little bit less.
Yeah, that's kind of what he says.
Yeah, I've heard him say that a lot. Yeah, and I've listened to a lot of his content, actually.
So I want to take another number for you, okay, in another graphic for you, which is interesting. And a lot of these come from Ryan Berge, who if you want a great follow on X, get Ryan Berge's information. Super interesting. All of his content basically is faith-based, and it is a lot of polling and things of this nature. So what he shows here is the share of each generation that was raised non-religious versus currently being non-religious, okay? And what you see across the board is, from the silent generation down to Gen Z, is there's a certain percentage of us that are raised religious and a certain percentage that are not. But it tends to be that percentage, whoever was not raised religious, that number tends to double, okay, through life. So in other words, the silent generation, 5% were raised basically without religion of any kind, okay? And then 11% ended up kind of continuing along that path, okay? And then you say boomers, 7% raised without a religious background, 18% as they've grown older, right? So the numbers increase a little bit, but still, you go all the way down to Gen Z, 40% now without religion is part of their life.
It basically doubles by the time.
Yeah, it's doubled. Each one.
Each one. Do you say that? Sorry.
I did say that.
Well, I'm just here to repeat what you said.
No, you did great.
That's what I do.
You did great. No, you reiterated.
Well, I'm following it better now. Like these graphs sometimes are hard for me to pick up. I'm like, I'm looking at that. What's he trying to say? Okay, I'm here now. Okay, I'm with you.
So you look at this too, and you say, oh my gosh, that's not great, right? It's not great. But then Ryan releases this number earlier today, which I thought was interesting.
It says the share of Americans believing in life after death in 1972 was just over 76%. The share of Americans believing in life after death in 2024 is a little over 82%. So it's going up. It's going up. Life after death is going up.
So you can see it. This is the graph that he attached to it. And so in 1972, it was definitely lower than it is now, and we're kind of on a steady uphill climb. And I do think there is a little bit of a spiritual revival in this country. I do believe that.
I believe that too.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely happening. And so I think the reason I want to show you these different graphics is just to show you there's a give and a take in all of this. It's not all good news necessarily, but I do think that there is this sense, I think, of a higher power that more and more people are accepting. I don't know how you don't see this, the beauty of this world, and think there's not some organizational power behind it. Well, there clearly is. Now, how you want to attribute that is a different question.
Yeah, I mean, I think largely just my 2 cents on this is I think with a lot of the things that are negative with social media and things of that nature, there's also some good that is coming out of it where you see more and more Christian influencers or Christian musicians sharing their music that kids are like, oh yeah, I'll put that as my background for one of my reels or whatever. I think you see pastors, really popular pastors, growing their influence. I mean, I talk about Pastor Josh Howerton a lot. I really like his Live Free podcast. I think he's excellent. His numbers in the last year have skyrocketed because I think God uses certain influencers in a time and a season, and that they can influence people for good. And when you're speaking truth, I think people are drawn to that. And I think with the wave of social media and all the negative that comes out of that, there's also, in God's world, he's going to use that too. So I think that he kind of gets his hands on that and says, okay, who can I put in the limelight on this to have some influence on today's teenagers, to younger kids, even adults, people that are their marriages, anything. Like, I think there's a lot of really positive content out there that points you back towards God. So I don't know. I don't know if that's if that's what's having influence on that. But I think, especially our country, we are craving more faith-based content.
Yeah.
And I think there is a need and a hunger for it like we haven't seen in a long time. And I don't know if it's from division or just that feeling that you kind of get that's empty because you're sucked into today's news or you're working all the time. And that lack of community because we're so much more independent and alone. I don't know if it's a combination of all of that, but I think people are hungry for faith and for community, and I think that's what people are they're grasping for it. I think there's a real need.
I completely agree, and I do think there is. I think there is a pushback because I think God is putting his thumb on the scale in this country. And I think that one of the reasons we've been blessed as a country the way we have is because I think a large portion of this country has turned to God at various times. This country was founded by faithful people who use that as the basis of the laws that we live by. We live by a Judeo-Christian law base. We do. I mean,
and we talk about our Creator in the very beginning of anything that was ever written here for laws of the United States. But yes, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
Gosh, I mean,
I know. I'm so sorry. I got the mic
fire today.
You let me talk about my faith. I can go all day.
Let me bring up one other little inane example, which is before something really more meaningful to wrap up with. You know, as you watch, I was watching the draft last week.
I know you were, sir. 2 inches in front of the television, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
I was dialed in, and the Cowboys' great draft pick. But not only their first-round pick, Caleb Downs, and their second first-round pick, and all their picks. But anyway.
Wow. I feel like
the number of players that stood up, went and posed with the commissioner and did an interview and thanked Jesus Christ was awesome. It was awesome. And yes, the Cowboys' first-round pick. Yeah, Caleb Downs did it as well.
Okay, well, how does that compare to years past? Let me ask you that.
You know what? I don't know, but and maybe I just notice it more now. But it's so, like, Mendoza's a great example. Like, we've talked about Mendoza, but every time he says, like, I want to thank God, it's so sweet and it is so real, and I love it. And I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things, and it's anecdotal, and I didn't do the numbers, but I just watch it and kind of go, you know, God is using people more and more now. And you talk about pastors, and it's absolutely true. But also, he, I think, has something for every one of us. And it may not be in front of a large stage with thousands of people. It may be just one person at the grocery store or whatever. But I still think he's always watching that. And I think you can feel it when he grabs a hold of you and says, I've got something for you. I got something I want you to do.
Well, yeah.
And to me, it's one of the most rewarding things that can happen to you.
You know, going off that, sorry to talk about this sweet little story really fast. Me and the girls have had talks lots, and I just said, you know, sometimes I don't know exactly what's planned for us the next day or whatever. We don't know what God has planned for us. And as much as we want to know the whole path down the road, sometimes you just know, like, today, what are we supposed to do with today, right? And I try to tell the girls, hey, today just get up, ask God to use the day in the way that he would be blessed with it. So help you see what he sees. See the people that he wants you to see. Smile at people, look at them in the eye, ask them how they're doing. Whatever it is, small moments are what really matters. And I went and had to get my blood drawn today. And I will tell you, the lady that was drawing my blood, she had a little tiny baby Jesus. It's a little tiny, and I have the same one on my nightstand as well. And it's a little tiny miniature Jesus that my friend Carla gave to me. And she had one. And I said, hey, I love your mini Jesus. And she said, yeah, I get them and I put them all over town. And I said, oh, my friend Carly does the same thing. And so then we started talking about our faith. We started talking about going to church and all the things and the pastors around town that we like. And just, it was just this like moment. And she had it on her little whiteboard, make somebody smile today. And I thought it was just a connection, right? It's this small moment that this woman drawing my blood, we had a small connection. And I think that is what makes the day a little bit brighter and a little bit better. And I think that that is what God ultimately wants, is us to have connection with each other. So that's
and
my
you never know. You know, he could have her doing that for that one person who finds that little baby Jesus and goes, God, I was looking for something today, and you delivered it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all the hands and feet of God in different ways. All right. I wanna wrap with this one. I gotta try to hold it together.
I know. Mark is a bit emotional.
This was emotional.
This is tough not to get emotional on, but I do feel bad because you did really tear up over this one.
Oh gosh, I was watching this because, well, you'll see why. You'll see why as a dad and what happens here. 60 Minutes did an interview with Ben Sasse this week, and Ben Sasse is a former senator from Nebraska. And I read his book back when he wrote a book about 7-8 years ago. Really liked it. He's a bit of a free thinker, and he definitely was not your common Republican. There's no doubt. He definitely had his moments with Trump and everything else and all that stuff. But he ended up leaving the Senate after, I think, like a term and a half or something like that. Went to be the president of the University of Florida. And then he decided that he would he ended up leaving there and then was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he was told in December he has a month or two to live. He's already beat that. But he did this interview with Scott Pelley, and I think Scott Pelley actually frames this question beautifully. It really did a really good job of Scott asking the question and then Ben Sasse giving him a super interesting answer to basically, you're in a really good place and you have really deep faith, but you're not going to be there for your kids as they grow up. And how do you wrestle with that? So here's the question from 60 Minutes and a super inspiring and emotional answer.
I make no comparison to what you're going through. But there was a moment on 9/11 at the World Trade Center that I knew I was dead. And in that lightning flash of an instant, the only thing that crossed my mind was leaving my family behind. And I wonder how you reconcile that.
Yeah. I'm incredibly blessed. My wife, Melissa, we've been married 31 years. We're going to be apart for a time. But she's tough and gritty and theologically rooted, and she's going to be fine. My daughters are 24 and 22, and they're extraordinary. I want to walk them down the aisle when they get married. That's not likely to be. That's not the math of my time card. My son, we have a providential surprise. He's a decade younger than big sisters. He's 14, and he's going to be fine. He'll have other wise men and women to put a hand on his shoulder. But I'm super bummed to not be there at 16 and 18 and 20 years old in his life. I want to give him more advice than he wants, and I want to put my arm on his shoulder, and I want his shoulders to get taller. But it's not a surprise to God.
And God, you believe, has a plan.
Absolutely. There are no maverick molecules in the universe.
Yeah, that's so touching. And it's just, yeah, he seems so authentic in his faith. And, you know, it is crazy. He is doing a clinical trials, what that show was talking about, and how it has been extending his life. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, how it goes. And it is hard. It's tough.
Oh, when you hear him talk about his daughters and he's bummed but at the same time, it's one of the things that kind of that drove home to me is, you know, God doesn't owe me he's given me more than he already owes me. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just a fact. And so you're not owed anything. You're not owed another day. So So don't assume you have it. You know, and so with him, it was great.
It's a sweet reminder.
Yep.
To make the days count, right, people? And to love people more than to fight with them. I mean, I think that's the biggest takeaway, too, that we're all trying to do our best, right? I hope so. Thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. We hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Do us a favor, if you wouldn't mind. If you haven't subscribed on our YouTube channel, we would love it if you could hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out. And then if you want to send us an email, you can do it on YouTube, or you can go to our website and send us one there. Sign up for our emails. I promise I won't spam you. Or if you want to donate to our show, that's how we keep the lights on, is through donations. And so we'd appreciate that as well. Thank you for spending some time with us. God bless you and your family, and we will see you back here later this weekend.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.